What I want to get into now are some of the trade secrets, some of the things that the average individual wouldn't even know existed when designing a kitchen. I guess we can call this the fundamentals of good design. So I'm going to let you break it down. We've got four main ones I want to cover today, and you can take it away, starting, I guess, with balance.
First of all, this is music to my ears.
Okay.
I love to hear a contractor talk like this. It's brilliant.
Yes.
Because these are all the things that are not just important for your kitchen, they're important for your whole house. So maybe your living room or your library, but we're going to talk about it specifically in the kitchen because it's such an important room.
Yes.
So yes, you brought up balance, and it's probably the biggest one, because when something feels off balance, you may not be able to explain it, but you know it just doesn't feel right, and it often affects flow and symmetry.
Appliances can be pretty heavy in a space.
Yes.
Even extra features like a wine cabinet like we have here, they're not just there to look good, they're there because of the whole balance situation.
Yes, so if you look at homeowner desires, what they need, but then you look at the actual layout of the kitchen, the location of them is not just function, but it's also part of it for balance. Appliances are exactly that. They're huge, so it's really important to find a way to make sure those big things don't take over in the space. It's like you're kind of tipping over sometimes if you're not very careful about how you lay things out. So a good kitchen designer will look at where are we putting these things so they function well, but so they also balance the relationship in the kitchen.
And I often find that balance ties in really well with symmetry as well, which is the second point.
So symmetry is so key. Symmetry is an easy thing for a lot of people to do because they understand it. So symmetry means that you have a center point and you have equality on either side of it. The hood, for instance, behind you is symmetrical because it has the equal cabinets on either side. Even though the kitchen's not perfectly spaced out, it allows you to feel like there's balance because there's symmetry.
Personally, I like to find a bit of a hybrid between balance and symmetry, meaning that, yeah, it's nice to make sure this is centered and symmetrical on either side, and absolutely, if you've got a cabinet here, it's fantastic to match it, but then you can start switching things up because we have an L-shaped kitchen, we don't have a U-shaped kitchen. It's not going to be perfectly symmetrical. That's okay, as long as we're consistent, right? Our spacing is consistent, our traffic patterns.
That's absolutely right. And I always like to tell people, start in the middle of the kitchen. Your cooking zone is where you want to begin, and that's the easiest place to create symmetry from. Everything else can work out from there.
This is the way you work, I know, because we're working on my house.
Yes.
And every time I try to make a change to the kitchen, you're like, but it's not perfectly balanced with the oven, and yes.
It's all how it looks in the end, and of course that look also affects the function.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So that makes sense to me. Now the third point would probably be the focal point.
Definitely. The focal point is the element in the room that you see when you walk in. So I always
So
like
you.
Yeah, I'd love to believe it was me all the time. Thank you. But it isn't in all cases. What you really want to think about, and this is what I say to clients, is think of the money wall. Where's that wall that you are investing in and you want people to really look at? So in this case, this is our focal point. This is the thing you see when you walk in, and this is that you want it to look good no matter what. We have a great focal point here with the hood, and then with the backsplash, the countertop wrapping up with more Cambria, it really draws your eye to it.
It doesn't always have to be the stove or the range hood. It could be another element, but it's the first thing that people will gravitate towards.
Yes.
And they'll make an immediate impression of the entire space based on it.
And I just have to say, Scott, because no one can ignore the wine area.
Yes, I know. I keep wanting to go over there.
That's right. Who
when
wants
we're done.
to forget? I know. The nice thing about the wine area is it creates a secondary focal point. So a good thing to remember is not only just one focal point in the kitchen, there can sometimes be two or three. So you want to think about that as you're laying out your kitchen. What do I really want to see that defines me?
And then the fourth fundamental of kitchen
The fourth
design.
one is scale.
Yes.
So you want to think about how big things are getting. A big area where people get challenged is the size of the island. How big should the island be relative to the kitchen space? And islands keep getting bigger and bigger because we want more space to entertain. And this is a great example where it's the right scale for the kitchen. It doesn't seem too big, nor does it seem too small.
What about, other things? In terms of appliances, for instance, it would be ridiculous to put in a 24-inch oven, for instance. In here. But I'm just saying, some people will try to do that to sacrifice they'll sacrifice the size of an appliance to get more cabinetry. So how do we find, like, what's the rule?
So my thinking about that is you define with your appliances initially about how much function do you need. And if it turns out that you actually really only want a 24-inch appliance,
Yes.
then everything else has to scale
along
accordingly.
with it.
So you might use 24 inches
Yeah.
as your measurement that you're going to work all the way through, so that what you do is you create your symmetry and your balance by starting with that main piece that's part of your focal point.
What about going up? I mean, I've seen kitchens
that's a good
really start to go higher. Even this one, for instance, it's flush to the bottom of the moldings there, basically. So what do you suggest?
Well, I'm going to say that 10-feet kitchens, and certainly 9 feet, is not uncommon today, and we are seeing higher and higher, because even though you may not have floor space, a lot of people have height.
Right.
So take advantage of it, because that's what's really going to give you that extra storage and really make the whole kitchen a focal point, not just one element of it a focal point. Which means when you're standing looking from the living room or the family room, you're really seeing this as the dominant element in the house.
I think that pretty much explains those fundamentals. These are those things that you don't necessarily read in a manual, and you don't think of every day, but because this is our life, this is our business, this is what we do, we know that by following these rules, we will have a competitive advantage, in fact, a unique advantage when we complete our projects. And hopefully you can use some of these exact same principles and apply them to your own renovation. Good luck. Thanks.